you may love or you may hate Facebook, or you may not have an opinion about it at all. Well, most people are on it these days, so you probably do. But regardless of whether you love or you hate Facebook, in my opinion, the new antitrust lawsuit against Facebook is BS, and I am going to tell you why. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Joe the Lawyer. I'm Joe Pometto, a practicing attorney in Pittsburgh, PA. This is my podcast where I talk about legal news and look at lawsuits. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It's a free way to support this show. Looking to get to 1,000 subscriptions right now, so if you're not subscribed, go ahead, click the subscribe button for me right now. Okay, so the lawsuit against Facebook is BS. First, let me tell you what is going on. Within the last few days, there was announcements in the news that the federal government and 48 of the 50 states, and that means 48 attorney generals from the 48 states, are bringing antitrust lawsuits against Facebook. It's actually two different lawsuits, one brought by the federal government and one brought by the 48 states. Two states did not join in. Now, I tried to research this. I didn't go into a big, deep dive. It looked like originally there were 4 states who had not joined in: Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and South Dakota. It's down to 2. I don't know who the last 2 are. What is an antitrust lawsuit? So in this case, this is a lawsuit brought by the federal government and the states under the antitrust laws. The antitrust laws exist to prevent companies in the United States from engaging in illegal, unlawful, or unethical business practices, but most importantly, it exists to break up monopolies. It exists to break up monopolies. Now, what is a monopoly? Well, the legal definition is probably a little bit different from the definition that we have in our heads, but in a nutshell, a monopoly exists when one company has cornered the entire market for a certain product or a certain industry. Industry is the better way to think about it. So some classic monopolies were Standard Oil in the early 20th century. They had bought up all the little oil companies around Ohio and Pennsylvania and in the United States, and the government stepped in, boom, broke them up. That's why we have a couple different oil company or gas companies now. I believe Exxon, a lot of the big gas company, a lot of the big gas companies in the United States were part of the Standard Oil breakup. Another popular one was AT&T, which I think took place in the 80s or 90s. The federal government said, oh, they got a stranglehold on the telephone business. AT&T needs to be broken up. Boom. They broke it up. Now the federal government is going after Facebook under the principle that they are a monopoly. I am going to argue that Facebook is not a monopoly. So one of the things that is claimed in I believe the lawsuit, I haven't read the lawsuit itself, but in the articles about it is, Facebook's been around since 2008, 2009. A couple years later, in 2012, Facebook bought Instagram, one of the up-and-comers in the social media category. They bought Instagram, incorporated it into their business. A couple years later, 2014, they bought WhatsApp. WhatsApp is like this messaging app that's used internationally. All right. Facebook gobbled up these 2 smaller social media companies, and now they have a monopoly. Now they have a stranglehold, okay, on the social media market. This is what these lawsuits are saying. However, I don't believe that that's true. Now, first off, Facebook's lawyers shot back and said, this is the federal government and the states trying to sort of get a do-over. They're trying to turn back the clock. And what Facebook's attorney is saying, which I think is really smart and is spot on, is if you were so concerned, why didn't you stop this back in 2012 when we bought Instagram? Why didn't you stop the sale, right? Certain large sales like that, the government will step in. For instance, T-Mobile bought Sprint recently, and the government had to approve that merger. But they didn't stop Facebook from buying Instagram, didn't do anything about it back in 2012. 2 years later, didn't stop Facebook from buying WhatsApp. I'll tell you, I'll give you a little bit of my inkling here, is that those two apps actually weren't that big until Facebook bought them. So Facebook bought them and turned them into something good. Perhaps they wouldn't be what they are if Facebook never bought them. So is that a sign of stamping out competition, or is that the sign of Facebook perhaps having a good business model? All right, so the government's upset with Facebook, is coming after them, claiming that they're a monopoly. All right, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, Facebook was a monopoly. All right, now it's 2020. This is what's so ridiculous about this lawsuit. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, back in 2009, perhaps some of you remember MySpace in the 2000s. All right, MySpace fell by the wayside. Facebook started out for college students and then opened itself up to the larger population and sort of exploded 2009, 2010. That's when I got Facebook, 2009. And in the years right after that, they were the only social media company. They did have a monopoly back then. And when they had that monopoly, they couldn't even hold on to it. What does the landscape look like now? I mean, there are dozens and probably many more than that of social media companies that do quite well despite the fact that Facebook is in the market. So, well, maybe the next most popular? I don't know. All right, Twitter. Twitter is huge. Twitter does fine despite Facebook. Snapchat is really big with the younger crowd, okay? I don't really use Snapchat, but it's huge. It's large social media. You can send messages, you send pictures. All right, Reddit is a big social media page where people post topics, talk about news, etc. YouTube is exploding. It's like a talking Facebook. It's like a Facebook for videos. The newest on the block, TikTok. TikTok is huge. TikTok is exploding. Facebook hasn't stopped these other social media apps from carving out a huge chunk of the industry. You have Parler, which is gaining popularity as sort of a right-leaning Facebook. You have LinkedIn, which has survived by taking on a social media type approach, right? LinkedIn used to just be for a profile and you could look at other people. Now it has a news feed like Facebook, etc. Skype, Discord, the list goes on and on. So the government is taking a look at Facebook right now when they should have been taking a look at it 6 years ago. And in fact, the competition is probably, in my opinion, stronger than ever. So why are they looking at Facebook now? Why are they targeting Facebook now? And I must say, I think if you're going to go after anybody, you should probably I'm saying this on YouTube. I love YouTube, all right, and Google owns YouTube. All right, so think about that. Google owns YouTube. How big is Google? How big is YouTube? Frankly, the government's going after Google as well. I don't think they should be going after either of them, okay? But I think there's some other companies that should be getting looked at besides Facebook, all right? Look at what Amazon's done. Amazon's driven, big box stores, Macy's, JCPenney, Sears, and dozens of digital and online sellers right out of business, either gobbled them up or ran them out of business. Why isn't the government looking at Amazon? Listen, I love Amazon. I'm frankly not for any of these antitrust actions for the most part. I mean, I'd have to look really, really hard. But I have a strong opinion about the one against Facebook. I think it's BS. So this is like a do-over from the government. Competition is stronger than ever. So why are they going after Facebook now? In my opinion, it is for political reasons. And you can see here, they got 48 states on board. So it's bipartisan. Republicans are going after Facebook. Democrats are going after Facebook. Why are Democrats going after Facebook? Well, they've had, it seems like dozens of congressional hearings where Mark Zuckerberg, the owner, CEO of Facebook, has been drugged before Congress. And what Democrats like to grill him on is they say, you allow too much fake news. You allow news articles to be posted on your site that aren't true. All right. You allow these groups that spread hate to proliferate on Facebook. You need to censor them more. I think a lot of liberals blame Facebook for giving Donald Trump an engine for winning the election in 2016. So liberals have an axe to grind from that perspective. They think Facebook doesn't do enough censorship of what they call fake news or extremist groups, and also that they helped Donald Trump win the election back in 2016. So they want Facebook to clamp down harder. Republicans, on the other hand, they also have a reason to go after Facebook. They believe Facebook is doing too much censorship of conservative and right-leaning groups, conservative and right-leaning newspaper articles that are put up, conservative voices on the platform. They believe that they are being censored, right? Facebook will put you out in Facebook jail. So I'm not expressing an opinion on either one of these, but what I'm telling you is both sides, the right and the left, feel like they're getting a raw deal from Facebook. You know what I think? When I look at Facebook, I think they're trying to walk that line. They're trying to walk that line. And I actually think they're trying to walk that line when it comes to censorship more so than some of the other social media platforms. So I think this lawsuit is largely political. I think politicians on the left and politicians on the right both have an axe to grind with Facebook. Perhaps, maybe they have a little bigger axe to grind on the left, maybe not. I don't know. That's why I brought up the states that brought the action, 2 Republican states that stayed out of it, but 2 states is pretty minimal, all right? It looks like both sides have a bipartisan consensus of let's go after Facebook. I think the government is using this antitrust litigation and the 48 states using this antitrust litigation to get at Facebook over the axes they have to grind as far as too much censorship or not enough censorship. And listen, if you have a problem with Facebook censorship, regulate that. But here's the issue with that. Any government regulation of speech would violate the First Amendment of the United States. Not any, but a lot of government regulation of speech is difficult because we have the First Amendment and the constitutional rights that exist. So the government doesn't want to step in, would have a difficult time stepping in telling Facebook to regulate its speech. But what is another way they can get at Facebook? They can ram this massive antitrust litigation Facebook's way, perhaps break it up. Here's another interesting part of this situation is that the markets so far, so Facebook stock dropped a little bit since the announcement of the lawsuit, but the markets have not reacted very strongly to this. Now, I don't know how Wall Street and the markets generally react to antitrust litigation, but the small reaction from Wall Street to me makes me think that that Wall Street, the professionals, the stockbrokers, the people who work in this industry, this business, familiar with the antitrust lawsuit, I don't think they're taking it that seriously. Or they don't think that it will have that much of an impact on Facebook. Look, it might. Maybe the government gets in there and cuts them up, or maybe they come to a resolution after a couple of months and things go on. They could force Facebook to spin off or sell a portion of its business, which, again, I just don't think that should be the case. I don't think Facebook actually has a monopoly. I think the politicians here have an axe to grind, and this is one of the only ways they can get at Facebook. All right? Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my opinion. That's my first impression when I heard this lawsuit come out. So I hope you enjoyed this legal analysis. I'll drop some links to the Facebook antitrust lawsuit. We'll see what happens with it. I'll continue to cover it. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Those are free ways to support my channel. All right, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, and it lets YouTube know that people are watching me, YouTube will, in share reward me by putting my content, my videos in front of more people. So help me grow. Totally free way to do it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. All those things, free ways to help Joe the lawyer get more videos to you. Thank you very much.